1.
This is planet5D.
Hi, everybody. This is Tony Toscano, and Planet5D is my favorite podcast. He gets an A.
Welcome to anything and everything, DSLR and beyond. Planet5D. This is the official Planet5D podcast.
Welcome, Earthlings. My name is Planet Mitch, and this is the Planet5D podcast, starring Barry Anderson and Pamela and Barry as my co-hosts. And we'd love to welcome you to our brand new sound effects. And our special guest today is Jon Holland, who created that music for me last week. Welcome, Jon.
Hi, guys.
Very well done.
I like it a lot.
You didn't even get to hear it. I'm wondering, the sound quality just went...
Did it really?
Yeah, it sounded like it was in a tin can, but you know what? That's just me.
Welcome to the web.
Yeah.
Jon, you're a perfectionist, and
I'm going to have to remake a video of just that music. The Planet5D intro, you can watch just the 30 seconds of music. But hi, everybody. How are you? Hi,
Good morning.
Hi, Barry. Hi, Mitch.
Hi, Jon.
Mitch,
For those of you who
further,
don't know,
I would just
ahead.
like to say that I think you just massively increased your German viewership by your dancing to the music. So I'd like you to watch your stats.
I was afraid his camera
but
was
lost
going to
the
work.
American viewership.
That's possible as well.
I was afraid your camera was going to work while the music was playing, and sure enough, it was on.
Well, my original plan, Jon, was to actually somehow show my desktop or some sort of a video, but I haven't figured out yet how to get Google Hangouts to do the video while things are going on. So
You haven't watched enough Skrillex videos, I think. I think that's the problem.
for those of you people listening to the audio podcasts, post-mortem, as they say, you're missing out on all sorts of stuff, and we really think you ought to join us when we record these live now via Google Hangouts. And you can, there's a link in the blog post and in the YouTube video showing you how to join us. And starting next week, we're going to be giving stuff away for people who sign up and join us live in the stream, as they say. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Wait, we don't get anything? Just the fans?
You get lots of applause and lots of love from everybody, and I'll give you $1.
I'm disappointed. I thought that watching Mitch dance was payment enough.
That wasn't payment.
I see how it's going to go, yes. It's going to be one of those crazy days. All right, so as a formal introduction, Jon Holland, who is our special guest, is a music producer and camera geek. We met 2 months ago, I guess it's 2 months ago now, at NAB. And do you want to tell the story, Jon, or do you want me to tell the story of how we met?
It's all yours.
Jon
I'd love to hear your version.
I think it was day 1 or maybe day 2. No, it's day 1.
Leave the part about security out of the story.
Yeah, okay. I was standing at the Canon photo section up in the upper area. It was day 1 actually, and they have just some photographs on the wall where they have the projector. What do you call it? The theater room.
Yes, so surrounding their huge booth, basically on the outside perimeter of the Canon booth, pretty much every year they put large prints taken with their cameras and typically printed with their printers. And it's like a little museum gallery as you walk around the Canon booth before you enter the actual booth, which is about the size of like a large electronics store. It's quite a...
So we were standing there, and John happened to be looking at one photo, and he sort of turned to me, and we didn't know each other, obviously, two strangers in the night. It was dark there.
It sounds romantic.
Yeah, please don't go there.
Yeah. Anyway, John said something about...
I knew I should have told the story. My version's very different.
John said something about, look how sharp the 5D Mark II is, and I commented, and we went on from there. We ended up standing there talking for over an hour. I found out that John was very into music and was a composer and a producer and has been around in the business for years. And one of the first questions out of my mouth after I found that out was, why in the heck are you at this massive NAB show? And John said,
it's the other part of my life. It's the complement to the audio. Yeah, basically. I don't know if I use those words, but
well,
yeah,
go ahead.
Like I said, I've been going to NAB for, I believe it's 18 years now. Maybe starting 20. I think I missed one show. I think I got frustrated with what I was seeing. But yeah, I mean, it's a place where I go to see the latest and greatest technology. Like I said, I do about 5 trade shows a year: Audio Engineering Society, the NAMM show, which is a music instrument convention, and started doing the NAB about 20 years ago. And I started very young, and I just kind of managed to finagle my way into NAB and said, this is like a big toy store for, film and video stuff. So I was returning yet again, and as I told Mitch, it just started really getting good about 5 or 6 years ago, and I
That's about when I started going.
Yeah,
No
it really. Trust me, you didn't miss anything. I mean, it was a lot of, again, without digressing, it was a lot of great stuff for Hollywood budgets, but it was literally $500,000 for quality that, how can I put this? About 6 years ago, we kind of broke through that barrier of price points that were acceptable quality, and for me, it really got interesting when I thought, you know what, I'm going to be very soon taking the plunge, and that's when the 5D showed up out of nowhere. After the Red had been introduced about a year before that, and it was all getting really, really good. So anyway, I was telling Mitch about all that stuff, and we just got to talking about it, and that's it. I just said, hey, I know your website. Was your version anything like that at all, or did I make all that stuff up?
Yes, it was. Okay. No. And I was just, my jaw was hanging really low. I was just in awe of your entire background and all of the amazing people you've met and worked with, and I'm really boosting you up here, aren't I?
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting that from. You must have read somebody else's bio, not mine.
No, you were just bragging about all these big name stars that you've worked with.
No, it's the...
and of course, we have to mention at least briefly that you are famous for a couple of video game soundtracks, right?
Famous to some people who follow that stuff, yeah. I guess, I don't know.
Tell us which ones, so we have it on record, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, the very short version is that I was signed. I spent much of my childhood, of my, teen years, trying to get a record deal as a solo artist, as a recording artist, and I was kind of a studio rat and kind of did everything myself. And spent 2 years with Warner Brothers, and spent a lot of their money, recorded some stuff that has never come out, thank God. And then I kind of got into the video game industry when all this stuff was really taking off, probably about 15 years ago or so. And I ended up doing a Sega game called Vector Man. It was a Sega Genesis game, and it did really, really well. It was one of the last hurrahs for cartridge games before we all moved on to PlayStation and Xbox. And I was never really a huge gamer. I loved imagery. I loved a lot of computer animation and all that kind of stuff. So. And I love movies, so they told me what kind of music they wanted, and I gave them music, and lo and behold, it took off. So did the Vector Man games, and then I ended up doing the Ms. Pac-Man project for PlayStation and Nintendo and all that kind of stuff. So that and, 11 games total I ended up doing the next 10 years of my life. And so that's the story, yeah. And I did some things for ESPN and United States Air Force Thunderbirds when I was very young, and just, learning, trying to get better at what I do, I guess. So.
Aren't we all
How's that,
trying to get
Mitch?
better?
Yeah,
We're all trying to get better at what we do. At least I hope so.
Yeah, we learn from each other.
Yeah.
I think that's what I get most out of NAB, and that's one of the reasons that Mitch and I were reflecting on the best part of the show was when you stop and you talk to a human being and you just get into this conversation and you just say, I know I'm not going to get to see this booth or that booth because I spent an hour talking to this Mitch guy, but he was a real guy, and he wasn't one of the engineers explaining to me the pixel pitch on a sensor or something, and
I think you hit it on the nail. The reason why we go to these conventions and expos and whatnot, it's that real person factor. Yes, you can go to classes, yes, you can see things, but when you actually talk to people, when you actually put yourself out there, amazing things happen. I can't even begin to explain of conferences and expos that I've gone to that my life has changed because of the people I meet, and that's the reason why we go to those things.
Yeah,
Internet's great.
Absolutely true.
All this is great. You can learn whatever you want on the internet, but that actual people factor, that in-person connection is what makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, people have opinions. Everybody has an opinion. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, you have plenty of opinions, John, let me tell you. But I have to back that up, Pamela, because, frankly, Planet 5D would not exist if I hadn't started going to places like NAB and the Collision Conference where I met you originally. I would have just let it die because I wouldn't have had that personal interaction, and I wouldn't have met people like you and John and all that kind of stuff, which really sort of inspires me. So I'm saying all of that not to brag, but to urge people that if they get the opportunity, go hang out at something like NAB or Cinegear, speaking of which.
Well, and don't be afraid to go by
week.
yourself. Like Photoshop World and Collision Conference, I was part of Collision Conference organizing it, but Photoshop World, I went by myself. No soul, I didn't know anybody there, and that snowballing effect, everything I do today is because of that. You're so busy, you can't ever get a hold of you. But Barry and I are going to Cinegear this week, Friday and Saturday. And for those of you who are watching live and watching the replay between now and Saturday, we're going to be broadcasting live. Barry and I will be on with Michael Artsis, who I was with at NAB. And there will also be the Planet 5D live blog. So we're going to be covering that in multiples of ways. So tune in to planet5D/live blog, and we'll have links to absolutely everything there about Cinegear. So that's coming up, and that's pretty exciting. Yay! Yay!
Right?
Yes.
I've never been.
John, well, and it's far away from you, so don't go. Recently, Apple just announced that they acquired Beats. And you and I were talking the other day a lot about the quality of audio and how you're a perfectionist. And I was in the Apple store actually last week getting my phone fixed. And I listened to the Beats headphones, and I wasn't actually very impressed unless they'd been banged about too much. So I want to know what you think about that kind of an acquisition, if you have an opinion.
Me?
Yeah, you. You're the guest.
No, I think it's great. I mean, I commented on my Facebook page. I didn't mean to sound negative about it at all. It's just, no, in the sense that, it's a marketing success story. The Beats are good headphones. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. They sound good. They're not cheap. I think it was unfortunate that the companies that have been in that industry for so long, 80 years, the big boys, the people who are involved with the audiophile industry, didn't see the value in sort of celebrity brand recognition. And I think Dre has an amazing pull with all of pop music. And I think he's done a great thing with his partners. And how Apple's going to tie into this, I don't think I know enough of the properties that Beats was holding. I don't really know what Apple bought other than the brand recognition, the cool factor, which could certainly be a lot of cachet there, if that's the word I'm looking for. So I don't know.
Well, I saw a video, just to chime in there, John, yesterday, and I can post a link to that. There's the Red Code conference, I think that is, with I'm not going to be able to come up with their names. Anyway, they interviewed Dre's. See, I can't come up with any names. I got Dre. Do I get bonus points for that?
Don't remember Dr. Dre.
Oh yes,
Dr. Dre and Jimmy Levine.
Yeah, Jimmy Iovine. Yeah.
Iovine, thank you.
Yeah, he is the founder of Interscope.
How do you say his last name?
I believe it's Iovine or Iovine. Iovine. I believe it's Iovine.
Iovine. I don't know.
He was instrumental in Fleetwood Mac's career. I believe he was a recording engineer, producer, and he was responsible for a lot of their sound, from what I recall. I may be wrong, but he started Interscope probably about 20 years ago, and Dr. Dre was one of the first people he got involved with, and then Trent Reznor after that with Nine Inch Nails, and the rest is history. It was all the right time, right place at the right time. Trent Reznor was looking for a new label, and MTV was actually playing music back then, and they played those two heavily, and Interscope just kept signing, a lot of groups. So, he was in a very good position to partner up with Dre. So.
I guess my biggest concern is in the audio world. I don't know, these headphones aren't exactly the best, but there's a lot of potential, and I don't know. Can I say something teeny bit bad about Apple?
No. Oh, go ahead.
No, I love my Macs, I love my Apples, my iPhones, and stuff like that. But their business model has changed over the little bit. Before they had 20 QAs for every engineer, and now it's 20 engineers for every QA, which bothers me. Which now, get AppleCare, get AppleCare, get AppleCare. So it makes me concerned about, okay, they're buying this big name headphones. Well, what's the quality going to be like? What's the problems that's going to occur? That's where my concern comes in.
Well, I think it all depends what they do with the property. Is it going to be a Beats product? Is it going to be renamed an Apple product? I don't know if anybody really knows any of that at this point.
Well, that's why I'm going to jump.
Don't get me wrong. I think that Dr. Dre Beats headphones are good headphones. They are certainly in the upper echelon of sound quality. There's no two ways about that. But you are paying for that, and the cool factor is a lot of what you pay for. So whether the ears that are actually listening to those headphones can discern the difference between the other people that are in that tier.
That's a good point.
I mean, they're listening to a lot of iPod MP3 music that's 16,000 billion songs on a pen. So right. I don't know.
If I want you guys to watch, if you're really interested in this topic, the link that I'm going to post is this interview was done at the Code conference, and it turns out, which I wasn't aware of, the biggest part of the deal is the fact that Beats has a streaming music service.
Right.
And that's primarily what Apple was really kind of interested in.
And that's what I heard, and that's what I know the least about.
Yeah. And I actually just signed up for it the other day on a 3-month trial just to see what it's like. But anyway, so that's where they're primarily going. And yes, they are going to keep the Beats brand name, and will still continue selling Beats headphones, etc. But anyway, I was just curious what your take was on that.
Yeah, I suppose if you're buying a brand name, changing it probably isn't the smartest move, so they're going to do as much as they can with it, so I would hope so.
One of the things that you and I have talked a lot about, and when we were at NAB, it was sort of a big topic with you and I, and I'm smiling and grinning. Oh, before I forget, don't let me forget that. In the chat room, Sleeping House asked, how do you get into NAB or CineGear? And the answer is that actually both of them are free if you get a code from one of the sponsors or one of the vendors, like they're constantly throwing out these things. NAB has a whole bunch of training classes which you have to pay for, but the exhibits floor is free. It's $75 if you don't find one of the free coupon things, but
I do highly
Cine Gear
recommend
is
the
the same
training
way.
courses. The training.
Well, of course, you teach some of them.
Yeah, well, so I learned so much.
Yes.
Even going there, I just learned an incredible amount that I take back with me. Worth it.
But I didn't want to forget Sleeping House's question since I had seen it, and we will be taking questions for those of you who are in the chat room.
Well, and as
So,
NAB comes close next year, we will have. We'll get that information out to our listeners as well.
yes, thank you. So Jon and I were talking a lot about procrastination and his new music, which I find out he's working on, and we have some snippets. So I want to play some of the snippets that Jon sent, and then we will get to questions about Jon's music. So here is the snippets Jon sent.
Turn that camera off, somebody.
Don't mean to be ruining your music, Jon.
Well, that sound quality is impeccable.
Is it coming out poorly on your end?
That's the understatement of the century. I'm sitting there. Should I send him an MP3 at 192 or variable bit rate 320? I'm thinking, like, does it really matter? I could have played it over my cell phone for you, and it probably would have sounded better.
It sounds great in my headphones, Jon. I'm bopping around here.
Yeah, that streaming business is killing it. But
how do you classify your music? What genre? And I know musicians and producers hate that kind of stuff, but how do you classify it?
Because I overanalyzed it, I've had people tell me stop analyzing it, stop trying to name it, and I start thinking, like, oh, these people are telling me to name it, these people tell me stop naming it. It's electronic, at times EDM, electronic dance music, hence the first segment of that, which is why the second segment was more chill out kind of stuff, and that's when the signal on our streaming really started falling apart, and I felt like, that sounds terrible. But yeah, it's well, yeah, it's nobody's fault. It's it's pretty much, it's pop music, pop electronic music, so that kind of encompasses everything from the dance floor to the sort of cine dance sound, even filmic sort of electronic beats and stuff like that. But I like ambient music and I like rhythmic music, so I try to get both of them in there when I can.
So when is this album coming out that you're working on?
Question of the century. Everybody that's on my Facebook page, yeah. Again, the less I think about doing an album, the more I see I'm going to pick a tune, and I'm going to find what I need to do to finish off the tune, and I'm going to make a video for the tune. That's what I'd like to do, which is, probably going to be my first real actual use of everything I've learned at NAB. Had I known when I first started going to NAB that would be the thing, because I've always just been enamored of imagery and sound and music together. I've been a huge IMAX fan all my life. So now that we have the capability of doing 2K, 4K, high quality video, I think making videos for each of the individual songs as I go along, which will hopefully culminate into an album, will be how all this hopefully pulls together. So I hope that there will be a single as soon as possible, whether it's weeks. I'd like it to be done within the next few weeks. I have picked a song, pretty much, and if I continue, I've had, as I've said on my Facebook, I've had a very difficult time finding singers. We could do a whole show on that. That has been the oddest experience I have ever had as a music producer in my entire life. It has been, without putting too fine a point on it, it's just been surreal, the kind of people that I have met and their view of where they are in their career and their view of what they have to offer and the attitudes that come with it. It's like, you know, I don't want to be negative about it, but it's beating me up. It's really like, you know, the funniest thing is that the minute I stopped, and I'm digressing, but it's an important point that some of the people who are following what I'm doing will want to have the answer to as well. The moment I took a break from, I wanted to find somebody who hadn't made records yet, that had a nice voice, that perhaps on YouTube, because, you know, there's a million people singing covers of Rihanna and everybody else, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to contact this person and say, you know, how do you feel about singing on my dance track? It's, you know, it's kind of Zed-ish, it's kind of Dead Mouse-ish, it's kind of, you know, it's in that Cascade genre, blah, blah, blah. And I can't even get a response from these people because they just clocked up 200,000 views just yesterday on the new cover of Taylor Swift. And that's their career, and, you know, so it's like it's hard to get in touch with them. And then the moment I contacted somebody who was quite popular about 8 or 10 years ago, I won't say who it is, but she was the singer in a very, very popular chill-out band. And she was very polite. We had an exchange. She was very interested in hearing what I was doing. I just bum rushed her. I just sent her mail saying, hey, I got this track. I'll send you a little snippet of it. She liked it. But unfortunately, I caught her right in the middle of mixing her new solo album. And after about 2 weeks of exchanges, I got that dreaded, you know what, I really think I'm going to have to wait or pass. And I thought, my God, you know, it was like, you know, but I'm still going to send it to her anyway. I'm going to put a scratch vocal on it, maybe my own vocal, and send it to her. But anyway, those are the kind of experiences I'm having. And a lot of that has taken up a tremendous amount of time dealing with this. It just, like, I have to take like 10-day breaks every time I go through one of these rounds with somebody, you know, so...
I want to know a little bit more about these voices. Can you hear them?
Oh my gosh, Mitch. You're a character.
I am a character, aren't I? That's the whole point.
They're friends. They're friends of mine that I asked to...
And where did you record those? I think this is fascinating because I'm starting to really get...
Without it sounding inappropriate, that was recorded in the front seat of my car. My friend was in the passenger seat. I was in the driver's seat. I just stopped, said, you know what, the acoustics are better in the car. I put up the sun visor to keep the reflections off the window. I had a handheld similar to the Zoom unit. I've got a Tascam recorder. Put my headphones on and just, you know, it was a 20-minute thing. I just said, I need you to say planet5D, and it's funny too because she's from Senegal. She's African. She speaks French. She speaks, I think she speaks 4 languages, and it was, I never noticed how her French accent sounded. You know, didn't sound like it was from France. Didn't sound, you know. So it was a very. So I think Mitch mentioned he thought she was Russian or something like that. I said no.
Right.
Yeah,
you know, the funny thing, as a voiceover artist, I have to admit that I have done recordings in the car. I found a blanket, I take my Zoom, and I am like, because the way voiceover is right now, you get a call, like, can you get this within 30 minutes? Oh, crap, look.
Yeah, I'll do it on my way there.
Yeah.
I just won't shift gears.
So you said in the car, it's like, yes, I've done that in the car.
So for the uneducated, why a car? Because it's isolated?
The acoustics are quiet. It's, you know, if you can keep the reflections off the glass, it's a small, intimate sounding environment. You don't get the reflections off of the drywall.
Keep a blanket in your car.
Right. Yeah.
not only to be warm, but for...
Yeah, it was actually raining outside too, so I had to wait for the rain to stop. I had to wait for cars to drive by. I said I literally need 15 minutes of your time, which got dragged out into like 23 minutes of her time. But we got what we wanted. She didn't think
With
it was
you,
going to.
John?
I don't think it's going to work. I said it's going to be fine. I'll fix it.
John, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Someone who wants to get into music producing and is starting out, what advice would you give? Like looking back on what you've been doing, what advice would you give starting out?
Good question. Very good question. Things have changed an awful lot since I started. I started when I was in my teens. I started when I was 14 years old. There was none of this desktop stuff.
No.
I mean, it cost thousands of dollars to make anything of quality. My advice to you now is get comfortable with YouTube, because they're teaching you 24/7 there on how to use every single app there is, and you just pick which teacher conveys, these lessons to you, and you do it. You do it. There is no more direct route, as you know, with filmmaking as well, like Vimeo and YouTube and all these other services to present your wares, your abilities. People react. I mean, for me, without being verbose about the whole thing, you don't have the middlemen anymore. There's no record label telling you we're not going to give you the money to do this. We don't think it suits this market or that market. I mean, you can go that route if you're high profile, doing, if you need the pop audience. But more than anything, Pamela, to answer your question, I would say just do it. You have to do it. For me, I'm in an odd place. Is that I set up a Facebook page and a YouTube page about a year and a half ago, just kind of as a place marker, just to kind of learn how to do all this Facebook stuff and YouTube stuff. And I made a few videos, but I haven't really started yet because I haven't. I didn't really want my Facebook page and my YouTube page to be about the video game business or my background in video game music. It's going to be pop music that I hope will have some sort of attraction to some people. And so, like I said, when I do this recording, I make a song and I am happy with the results, and I go out and I make a video and I post it up on YouTube, I'll know then and there what I'm dealing with. What is my reaction. So my advice to these people is to do it. Do it. Don't be like me. Don't talk about it. Just do it. You have to do it. And
well, that's one of the things, John, that I keep prompting you, and you know it, because I want you to get some stuff done, which is I keep pushing you.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good that you asked me, Mitch, to do this intro. I had a lot of fun doing it. And God knows I had some late hours trying to perfect those 57 seconds. I really did. I mean, there's probably 40 hours of work in that 57-second cue. And you wouldn't know where the time goes.
Too, right?
Well, yeah, I think we'll send Barry and Pamela a copy of the proper file so that at least they can hear it.
Nice.
Yeah, it sounds a little different than it did, going in and out of streaming consciousness, if you will.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear that bad sound.
It's
Jacob in the chat room would like to know how to contact you, John. You've mentioned your Facebook page.
Yeah.
He can just
your
send URL to your
message.
Facebook page.
It's Jon Holland Music. It's Jon, no H, Jon Holland, like the country, music. So it's just facebook.com/Jon Holland Music. And you will find my mug on there. But
thanks, Jacob. Jacob has been here all 3 times we've done a live show. So
good man.
Hi, Jacob.
Thanks for showing up, Jacob.
And he's recording on Hijack Pro, and just in case the audio messes up or Barry's not working, so we have a third backup. That's awesome.
Thanks.
One of the things you were talking about a few minutes ago, John, was the word album. Do you think kids know what an album is, and is that word going to go away?
I don't think the way that we know the word album. All of us here grew up with a lot of people presenting their work as a so-called 1-hour experience, typically. And I think now we're we're kind of back in the 60s now, and Apple's pretty much responsible for, in some ways, you know, in many ways, I don't know if Apple bought some time or saved, you know, the business model of getting people interested in an easier way to buy music. And I really don't know what I think of the past 10 years when it comes to what's happened to the music industry and what's happened to the way people consume music. And you know, I know one thing, that I thought I had ADD. Everything now is 16-second sound bites. Click this video, you know, click that video. I have discovered an awful lot of music that way. I think that bodes well for the fact that there's no marketing and promotion budgets that have to be involved in the equation. You know, that was a huge thing that people like us didn't have just, you know, before YouTube, really. I mean, you have to consider just how much has changed in the film business and the record industry. There are no middlemen. There are no marketing people responsible. You know what I'm saying? There doesn't have to be. Yeah, they're there. Once you reach a certain echelon of your career, you're going to need them. So there is a place for big labels, for big film studios, for big recording studios, you know, for particular things. But the onus is on the talent now, the filmmakers and the music producers, to get themselves to their core audience, and that comes from these people who are word of mouth. Hey, check out this thing I just discovered on YouTube. I'm sending you a link. And I think that's invaluable. It's absolutely invaluable. So to answer your question, Mitch, I don't know if people think in terms of albums anymore. I think that, you know, I hear from audiophiles, because I am an audiophile, if you will. I go to these really high-end functions of high-end audio where people have more money to spend on audio gear than sense a lot of the time. And you know, they're talking about a comeback for vinyl, that they're selling more high-end turntables than ever. That may be the one medium people can't download from the web. So at your concert...
Do you think something's been lost with this whole digital era? I mean, as far as we can make something in our bedroom versus used to be going to the studio and laying it down on...
I think a lot has been lost, but that's a blanket statement. There are so many subgenres of music. There are bands, you know, there's Jack White, who is, you know, an all-analog guy. There is the Death Cab people in Washington that are all about their analog recording. So I think there's room for everybody now. There really is room for everybody. It's just, you know...
I think what will happen, and what is happening, is because so many more people have access to creating their art and their music, that the cream of the crop is just going to rise up.
Yeah, I mean, the most unfortunate thing you could possibly do is type in music producer on YouTube. I'm serious. The stuff that comes back at you. Yo, this your boy, da 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 da, and this guy's making beats, and that guy's got his rock band, and this guy's got this and that, and you know, I mean, they're all allowed to do what they're doing, but when you're inundated with that as your definition of record producer, you don't search beyond that, because the skill set, I think, you know, I think it was Kanye West made some analogy that he was the Quincy Jones of today's era, and I don't think Quincy liked the comment. He mentioned something about the fact that he doesn't remember Kanye, and God bless Kanye, and he's doing his thing, he's got his audience, he does what he does well, but Quincy said, I don't remember you writing for a 70-piece orchestra ever. And that's true. The skill set involved. A music producer is not a beat maker. That's a small part of what today's music producer should know. And I'm not, you know, what I'm saying is that I'm challenging all these people who are wanting to be producers and engineers and recording artists is to, you know, be like Jay-Z, come outside of your box that you live in and find value. Yeah, you've got it. You've got to get out there and find some value in how listening to some Hank Williams record or some Black Sabbath record will influence your hip-hop production.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Diplo and Mark Ronson, and these guys can't be the only people who care about that stuff.
So I saw Jay-Z in concert and in Candlestick Park, and he was there walking off stage. They finished the last song, and the camera kept on his face, and he looked over at Justin, And the look on his face was like, dude, we get paid for this. This is awesome. And I just remember seeing that look and that genuineness on his face, and I was like, I like that guy.
He's good at what he does.
And he loves it.
The cream does rise to the top.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, how do you get started in this thing? The first thing you have to do is open up your mind. The absolute first thing you need to do is open up your mind. And, you know, you have to understand that a lot of today's kids are in this whole game for completely different reasons than we got into it.
Yeah.
They love the celebrity that YouTube is giving them, and some of these people are really complacent and content with that. They get 100,000 views in their video, they're a success story, and if there's a business model in it for them, yeah, again, God bless them. It's like, you know, so it's been redefined. I don't really know what, you know, but there's a few really great shows. I always say watch Pensato's Place. Dave Pensato is a recording engineer who has mixed half the hits that have come out in the past 15, 20 years. I mean, the man has never left the studio, and I used to talk to my friends about him all the time. You know, oh, I met Dave Pensato at the AES convention, and he's a great guy, and he was playing some Christina Aguilera track or some whatever, you know, Beyonce track that he just got done mixing, and da-da-da-da-da, and you see that this guy really, really knows what he's doing. So my challenge to all of these people is, because all the people, so Dave started his own YouTube channel, Pensato's Place, and he, every week, all the people that he mentored, who are now everybody's recording engineer. I mean, 90% of the hits that are in the top 40 all came from many of the people that Dave mentored, who are now, you know, young, huge superstar recording engineers, and they're making all these guys sound really good. All the Drake records and all the, you know, all the Wiz Khalifa records and all the Nicki Minaj records, you know, if you're talking that genre of music. These guys really know what they're doing, and I think that people should listen to what these people have to say. So listen to the people with experience, and you will learn something. It's good to learn stuff. Yeah. I know it's a long-winded answer, but I think about this all the time. You know, because it's a weird thing. Like I said, again, type in music producer on YouTube. If you can get past the first 50 entries before you find somebody who's actually done something of note, good luck to you. It's a funny thing, and so I don't know why people are, you know, are getting into it, but I hope it's to become good at what they do.
That's a great piece of advice.
I'd just like to point out that both Jon and Pamela are extreme optimists. like unbelievably optimistic. So I guess we can tip our hats to both of them.
You mean I didn't stress enough the point I was trying to make? Someplace in that silver lining there was a dark cloud. I don't know if you got that part.
No, you both of you believe that the cream rises to the top, which I agree to some degree, but not totally. But then also,
if you define that in record sales, then no, that's not what I'm talking about. Yeah. I'm talking about you and I finding something that we really dig that's being released. Yeah, it's being released by a band that just started a year ago. You know, I mean, Empire of the Sun. I mean, when I first heard that stuff, I thought it was epic. You know, it's, you know, so much of that stuff is based, you know, I grew up with a lot of what they're imitating, not just that band, but, you know, that 80s sound is really in. And I was very young when I was listening to that stuff. I mean, I was a kid, and this was all new technology. Drum machines and synth pop music was, you know, late 80s was the start of all the, you know, the big version of that stuff. And now you'll find that that cardboard drum sound is really hip, but they're combining it with some pseudo, you know, Marvin Gaye guitar sounding soul, you know, kind of thing. And I think that sort of mishmash of decades of different sounds are why I'm optimistic, because some of it's pretty amazing. Some of it's really amazing.
I do understand what you're saying. I mean, I have working in radio for so many years, and I've met certain artists, and I look at them and I'm like, how did you get here?
Yeah, no. You can say that for a good portion of people too. that even have huge followings and go, what? I don't get it. I don't understand why they're so successful. But you know what? You can't argue with success. So however you define it, you know, all you're looking to do is find your audience with any genre of art, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I am optimistic, you know?
I want to... Yeah. Well, you are at times, and at other times I have to really push you. One more question I want to try to get in. We're running out of time, and I know Pamela and Barry have to leave. So if you guys need to bail out, that's fine. Jon and I will try to wrap this up soon, but don't be shy about just leaving if you need to, because I know Jon and I tend to just talk and talk and talk. But one of the questions I wanted to get in was, you and I have talked about, you know, writing your own album, but you've also been contacted and done music for movies and commercials and stuff like that. So if somebody were out there and said, well, I want you to write the music for my indie movie, how does that process happen, and how do you negotiate? And, you know, we know how they can contact you via Facebook, but
Sure.
What happens in the background?
There's so many variables, you know. It's who are these people? What do they hope to achieve? What do they have a budget? You know, I mean, it is.
The answer is no.
Oh,
to
you
that,
have
by
to
the way.
pay for music? There is no budget. Yeah. John's already run into that with me, so.
No, it's how can I put this without sounding like a jerk? There are a lot of people who are just starting off that have, you know, some serious skills, and you guys could grow together. You know, if it ends up that we can't do something due to the fact that you have zero budget, it is time consuming. You know, like anything, it's not something you just. I don't have the ability to whip together, you know, 16 minutes of music in one weekend. That's going to be of inequality. At least some people can. I'm not that guy. I'm a bit microsurgery. Yeah, but find people. Again, they're all over YouTube. You have to. The biggest thing I can say to sum up this entire 1 hour that we've been talking, you have to be resourceful. I think that is the biggest sort of downfall that I've run into with everything from singers who want to be on a record, models who want to be in a movie or a video, actresses who want to act. You have to do your homework to find out who are the people that are approaching you. Who are these people that just emailed you and said, hey, you know, I want to work with you. If you do your homework, at some point you have to say, okay, I'm here in my career. They're kind of here in their career. Do you at least want to have some dialogue about this? And I think if people are resourceful, it's never been easier to find people to hook up with, artistically speaking. It really has never been easier. You have to be resourceful. You have to not expect, as I like to say, you have to not expect that Steve Spielberg's going to call you. Find out who mows his lawn, because I bet that guy who mows his lawn knows more about making movies than half the people that have told you they're filmmakers. You know, it's really how it works. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but that is an important point that I'm glad we touched on, because that's been very frustrating for me that people are, you know, the answers are like right in front of you, literally. Every time you get on YouTube, there are people out there saying, hey, let's all hook up. I'm a filmmaker. I'm looking for a band, or a band looking for a video director, and you do a deal, you know? So to answer your question, how could I? It depends. It depends. If it's something that's not ridiculously time-consuming, you know, with a low budget, if they have a low budget, and it's an extremely interesting project, yeah, I want to be involved. Like anything. There are too many variables to answer that directly, but it all depends. It all depends on the project. Anything's possible. So
I'm gonna quickly say
you
bye.
have a lot of trouble with.
bye, Pam.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening.
No problem. Good job. See you later.
Oh, gee, we got the hand of the camera. Do people often approach you and say, well, you want to work for free to get your name out there?
Not anymore. It's been an awful long time since somebody asked me to do something that they had no budget on. not because I'm some Grammy winner or some Academy Award winner. It just I've left little trails of bread. I haven't left a lot of it. Some of the people who follow what I've done have left all these little pieces on YouTube and Facebook and MySpace of things, and so maybe people have just presumed that I wouldn't be interested. And again, there's if it's a zero budget thing, yeah, unfortunately I have overhead too, and I'm still buying gear and I'm still upgrading, so it's hard to spend a month with somebody that has a zero budget. But again, you never know. You never know what it is. It could end up being the most important thing I've ever done. I don't know. Barry, how do you find people to work with?
Okay.
Excuse me for one sec. Barry, how did you hook up with the guy who scored your movie that you guys did?
I actually the movie incident that Mitch and I did.
I loved it.
I actually really did too. I actually worked with them twice now. One of our PA. This is funny because we hadn't got to the point yet where we were going to be scoring it. We were in kind of pre-production, getting everything set, and one of our PAs, he's like, "Hey, my roommate's a music guy," and I'm sure you hear that all the time. I'm like, yeah, just like everybody I meet's a director, just like everybody I meet's a screenwriter. It's a term that means nothing to me. And so we were sitting there talking. He's like, yeah, well, he's coming off this other thing. I think he was working on, I think it was Prometheus at the time. I'm like, wait a minute, he's working on Prometheus? And he's like, whatever, 6 years old. So I said, well, have him give me a call. And so we called and talked, and he was just starting off, but he was like, the lowest guy in the lowest totem pole. And he sent me some stuff that wasn't right for the film, but we went through and looked through a bunch of, I do this for every film I do. I go out, I have a library of just an insane number of movie scores, and I do them from all different genres. So anytime I'm going into a project, I will go and find tracks that I find kind of fit the mood. Now, granted, they're all multi-million-dollar scores, so I have to keep telling myself it's not going to sound like this. And then
you'd be
I
surprised.
give it to someone like you, and I say, this is kind of the vein of what I'm looking for. And
that's
I can tell you the pieces. And
that's
then
exactly how I work, yeah.
Well, it's great because I don't speak musician. I don't know any beats, themes, whatever. I'm just like, this is kind of the feeling I want.
You can't really speak music. You have, because your definition of what you say, well, I kind of want a 2001 mode, and what you really meant was Fifth Element.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Instead, you could send me the clip from Fifth Element and say, this is the feel I'm looking, this exact 3 minutes of music, that's the feel that we want. That's the way to do it, definitely. So, go ahead.
And so, we had a couple tracks that we'd sent it to them, and the opening, kind of that almost creepy, music box thing is one of my favorite pieces of music on anything that I've ever done. I just listened to that, I'm like, this is just magical. And it was just, you found, like you said, I found the person at the right time in their career. They had some talent, but they got, there we go.
I'm sorry, I'm playing part of the music. I thought it would be creepy
like
over
something
you.
out of an old radio show, Mitch.
Classic Hollywood radio.
That's the creepy bells.
War of the Worlds, you'd have been really good at that.
And I think sometimes that process, we had a very short turnaround time for that particular film, and they did a great job with it. The next film, I actually worked with them, and I found out that he scores with his brother. And I did a stop-motion animated movie with my daughter, and we had, I think it's like 7 minutes long, but we had went and it turned out that Alexander, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name, if it's Display.
Desplat. I think it's Desplat or something like that. Yeah, he's fantastic.
So we had stuff from Fantastic Mr. Fox. We had all these different things, and most of what our temp tracks were from him. And so my then 11-year-old daughter, she's like, well, I'm gonna call Alexander Display and see if he'll score it. And I said, she's obviously my daughter because I used to call Hollywood people all the time. So she called, and I don't think the poor person answering the phone knew what to do, because they're like, wait a minute, you're 11 and you want to hire probably the most in-demand scorer in Hollywood right now.
You just won an Academy Award. It's going to be a little more expensive than it was last year.
Exactly. But what's funny is she got all the way up to what he responded and said, I really appreciate the offer, but I'm working on like 7 films right now, so I can't. And and there I'm like, okay, so how's my daughter going to take this? She's just been rejected. She thinks great things. She's like, she just pulled out. She's like, I'd like to contact Rachel Portman. I'm like, God love her. It's that.
I love Rachel Portman. She's one of my favorite.
Rachel Portman is so underrated. It's unbelievable.
She's one of my favorite composers. Yeah, she's in my top 5.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So Your House Rules, I think, was hers.
Yep, that's one of hers. And so we went back. We took all these temp tracks, sent it back to the same composer, and it was. We were so particular. I kind of thought they were going to quit. We had a small budget, give them a little bit of money, and it was like you were just squeezing blood out of a turnip. And it was just like if I gave you the email thread of it, it was these little things. I'm like, well, that particular thing there makes it feel different. And we just went through it, and then they'd send it, and then it was funny because I'd look at my 11-year-old daughter, who was my co-director, and we look at each other, and we're like, yep, that's it. And it was just funny. I'm like, I can't imagine what composers think to these crazy people on the other side, where you're like, guys, no, that's the part. And sometimes they lay down the law. I'd be like, we don't like this, and he's like, literally, if I redo that, there's nothing else I can do to it. It just. Yeah. And then you kind of sit there like, no, okay, you're right. I'm steering too much. But it's that creative back and forth that I love.
It's the dialogue. Yeah,
it is the dialogue.
The communication and have dialogue, and it's you have to put your ego aside and just say, look, it's got to be the right thing that the person who's making the decision here wants.
And you hope when you hire them, you hope that the composer that you work with, you like their work. You hope the stuff you've shown from your project, the composer's like, I really want to do that. So you're both kind of surrendering to the idea that we're going to find that common ground, that both of us are happy and it works for the piece, but you've done that due diligence ahead of time going, I'm not going to strangle this person because at some point I believed in the film, at some point I believed the composer actually had talent. And
you have to trust.
Yeah,
trust. It's mutual respect, and you have to trust that they know what they're doing.
Yep.
Like, I'm quite certain that when Mitch asked me if I wanted to take a stab at writing the intro music for his show, I'm sure he wasn't thinking of what I delivered at all. He was thinking, not to give a me speech here, but he was thinking, space, perhaps something a little more ethereal, some NASA vocals from the, space shuttle mission and the space station, and I thought, well, that's kind of what people would expect. Have you seen a Hollywood trailer in the past 5 years since District 9 came out? It's changed everything. There's an entire, exactly what I'm talking about, both of you. It's that.
Yep.
It's like, oh, here we go again. Yeah, that's what it was. I think that's NASCAR. I think those are NASCAR samples, and anyway, he said to me in the mail, I told him, trust me, I think that this is going to work. I'm not saying you're going to love it, unequivocally, that it's going to be the best thing you've ever heard. I didn't say that. I just said that this is how I see Planet 5D, and this is what I would do if this was my show. That doesn't make it right, but I said, let me, if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. Yeah. And I just thought, let's put in a little. It's almost like it's not dubstep, it's not cinema, it's like cinestep. I think it's a bit contemporary. Hopefully it works. Hopefully when you get to hear it in its Technicolor glory.
I'm laughing, John, because I told you that my daughters both said, Dad, that's a little too young for you.
Yeah, I thought that was the funniest comment I ever heard. So I said, that's exactly.
It's not all about just me.
That's exactly the comment I wanted. To me, then it's a success story. If it's too young for you, I succeeded. So yeah, I don't know. Again, it's one take on it, and I hope that it works.
I think you said something that's very important. I added a blog post to Planet 5D. Someone did this breakdown of Edgar Wright and his comedy. He works a lot with. I'm going to draw a blank on their names. Simon Pegg and kind of its cohort, and they talk about doing these transitions in comedy. It's talking about, we've lost the art of visual comedy in films. I mean, film is a visual medium. And what I think is so interesting, and I talk to a lot of people about this, and I try to do it in my own work, is a lot of people go, okay, so we're doing a transition, we're going to move from point A to point B, here's how we're going to do it. And they just kind of coast through that moment. And I think, like you said there, is like, yeah, it's easy. Okay, Planet 5D, you have 2001, you have Apollo 13, you have all these kind of, it would be very easy
Which
to
are
get
exactly
back.
what I did not want to do.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, there's a lot of people who have no imagination, that's exactly where they go to. And you never get something going, oh, wow, I never thought of that, but that's really impressive. And I try to challenge artists and the people I train. Okay, if it comes to your mind that it should be done this, throw that idea away and try coming up with a totally different way to look at it. And sometimes it just won't work because you're like, yeah, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah, and I wasn't implying that I was going to succeed with it. I said, let me take a stab at what I think is going to do. I certainly didn't put in my 30 hours right off the bat. Before, I said, now I can't have you tell me this isn't going to work because I'm not about to do this again.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to give him a feel of what. That's why I kept saying, look at the trailer for Prometheus, Avatar, Oblivion, Elysium. Though that genre, I said that's kind of how I see, Alien, which I just watched the other day. I see space and Planet 5D with the unknown. It's a bit, in some ways, daunting and ominous at times, and that's kind of the, the mysterious space feel.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where I approached it. But yeah, you have to trust that the suggestions that are being thrown at you by the person who does the music, given the fact that they've done a few things that they, and hopefully some of them that you've admired enough to call these people, that they'll hook you up. They'll at least present some ideas where you go, I'm not a composer. I would never have thought of that. I like this. I don't really think that that's the right way we want to do it, but let's sort of expound on this, vernacular that you're working with here. This may be what we're looking for. I kind of,
Well, the great part is when you trust the other person. In our stop-motion movie, which isn't public right now, but eventually when it's done with its film festival circuit, we'll make it public. They're kind of the climactic scene. We have this beautiful piece of music, and it was like we needed something to add kind of this light, almost comedic element, but be kind of in the vein of the rest of the music. And I couldn't come up with anything. I'm like, it's missing something. And when the composer delivered the track, instantly, both my daughter and I are like, they nailed it. And it would have never been an instrument in a million years would I have thought worked in an actual symphonic score. And they used a kazoo. And the use of the kazoo was just brilliant. You just hear it and you're like, oh my gosh, that is exactly the sound, the feeling, everything was summed up. And it was because you had that trust. And you guys were working on it. And eventually you kind of come to that same creative plane where you're both seeing what the other people are seeing, and you find that moment in it, and sometimes just works out brilliantly.
And it raises both of your stature.
Absolutely.
If the synergy works, it makes you both look like geniuses.
It does. It does.
So
but it is a process. I mean, neither person comes with the completed. It has to be this. Right. I mean, unless you're someone like maybe Stanley Kubrick, maybe an Alfred Hitchcock had it planned out prior to. But most people, it's a process. You have the vision for it, but you bring good people together, and then you kind of go into that. Like you said, you're kind of going into space. You're going into the unknown, and you hope on the other end you don't hit an asteroid. And we've all hit those. So
one thing I want. Yeah, I might add as well that there's a reason why a lot of these successful directors have worked with a lot of the same composers, film after film. Yes. Danny Elfman and Tim Burton, John Williams and Steve Spielberg. That there's something to be said for the fact that they trust that if they do another movie together, it's not going to be the same thing you just gave me for this particular subject, because we're not on that subject anymore. This is about a baseball diamond or whatever it may be. It's like, dude, this guy knows what he's doing. Let him present some ideas for you, and I guarantee you that he will nail it, most likely. So it's...
Well, I mean, if you do any sort of research on Spielberg and Williams, I mean, the fact is, for Close Encounters, Steven's the one that said to Williams, is like, all right, I want 5 notes. He's the one that said I want 5 notes. Why he chose 5 notes, even John Williams doesn't know. And he talks about how he did thousands of permeations of different 5-note keys. And when Steven heard the one, he's like, yep, that's it.
You want to see something real funny? Hold that thought. So those 5 notes that you hear in the movie, I don't know if you could see this. Can you read that?
That is awesome.
They were done on the ARP 2500. It was one of the very first modular analog synthesizers, And the guy who plays those notes in the film, I believe, was an employee of ARP. So he's the guy with the lab coat.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you should touch on that. I was going to wear this shirt. I go, now we're going to go with manly today. But yeah, so yeah, I feel you. I mean, definitely it's the communication, and you know, sometimes people have ideas. You know, there are some directors who are incredibly musical, and they're very articulate on conveying what they're looking for to the composer that they work with, and they get it. They understand what this person is trying to say.
Yeah.
Just really, you know, John Carpenter was one of those people who was, you know, very musical in what he wanted. You know, some of the stuff was kind of primitive in its technological sense, you know, back in the late 70s and early 80s. But yeah, it's dialogue, it's trust, it's respect. And again, like you said, don't be afraid to use samples. Send people samples and say, this is the feel I'm looking for. Don't give me those same notes. We don't want to go.
We're not stealing.
Right, give me new notes, but give me the mood. And you'd be surprised that
get in the ballpark.
A lot of times that same mood can be achieved using completely different instruments.
Yeah.
So, Mitch, anything to add to that? And I don't mean to be ignoring you there, taking over your show.
Got nothing. The whole point of this show is to have a nice conversation.
I got a call in a minute here, but it was great talking to John. I'll follow up with you after the show. But
absolutely,
yeah,
definitely. Thank you, Barry, for showing up. Appreciate it.
Take it easy, man.
Take care.
Thanks, Barry. And frankly, are you still there?
Yep. Yeah.
John?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
The broadcast is just falling apart. I am having a devil of a time hearing you, Barry. We're breaking up. It seems to be. I'm watching the stream. It seems to be okay, but I'm afraid that I don't know how much of it's getting through and how much it's not. And we're also at an hour and 10 minutes, so we probably ought to wrap it up anyway.
Definitely.
So I'm going to do that. I appreciate your time, John. Is there anything else you want to say on the way out before I cut you off completely?
Like Forrest Gump, I think that's about it. You know. Yeah, I'm glad I'm glad you guys. I didn't know what we were going to talk about. I had no clue. I thought, I thought it was going to be like word association and, Zeiss Master Primes versus Cook S4s, Leica versus, Hawk Anamorphics.
Well, that's why I didn't feed you the questions in advance. If I'd done that, then you would have been totally prepared, and
I'm going to come back and
the extemporaneous.
I'm coming back, and all we're going to talk about is camera gear.
Well, and I apologize because there is a question in the chat room about camera gear with Rode mics and DSLRs or external recorders, and I'm going to pass that off and basically say my typical answer for those kind of things is it totally depends, and we'll answer that on another session. Yes. Sean, I appreciate you asking the question. We will get into all kinds of stuff like that in future podcasts with other fabulous guests. And as I said, we're going to be giving stuff away. So if you're paying attention still to this podcast, and I really thank you for tuning in this long, and what I would like you to do is go to iTunes in the podcast section and please click on the ratings section and give us a rating. Make it honest. It doesn't have to be 5 stars, but I'll send you $5. No. And if you would happen to put in some comments there about the Planet 5D podcast, we would really, really love to see those kind of things. And that's, by the way, hint, hint, how we're going to be doing the giveaway that I'm going to do for the rest of the month. But you'll find out about that next week on the next episode of the Planet 5D podcast. And we're going to play John's music on the way out. That wasn't really my original outro that I did, but we should play your new. So it's Facebook,
Obviously, Planet5D is planned. And thanks again, Jon. We are over and out.
And everything are able to affect. This is the official Planet
5D.